Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I have Philip Robert here, who is a good friend of the Sharp family and a charter member of the Ruined Shoe Social Club. So he is going to teach us how to make sourdough bread.
I need to know everything, who and the what and the where, I need everything. Trust me, I hear what you're saying, but act like it's new what you're telling me. I'm curious, George.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'm very happy for that introduction. So, sourdough bread, that's what we're doing today. And it's just a very simple one. Sourdough is easy. We've been making bread for thousands of years. And just now we're getting back into the basics of bread, which is water, salt, and flour. That's all it is. We're going to use just plain all-purpose flour because everybody can get a hold of all-purpose flour. No need to get fancy when you're just starting out. And the first thing I do is I write down what I'm going to do. And we're making enough dough for one loaf. So that's going to take 500 grams of flour, 75% hydration, which I find works for me down here. With all-purpose flour, 75% is kind of a sweet spot.
Good.
So that's going to be...
You heard that here, guys, 75%.
Today I'm going to use 100 grams of leaven. If you want fermentation to go slower, use less leaven. 50 grams, 25 grams.
Gotcha.
You want it to go faster, add more. Salt is 2%, and that's going to be 10 grams. So the first thing we need to do when we make bread is get the starter out of the fridge and prep what we call the leaven. Starter, leaven, starter, it's the same thing. And what I do is keep a very small amount of starter in my refrigerator. Every time I make bread, I take this out and I mix it with however much water I'm going to be using, however much flour, and then I clean this container. The next day when I make bread, I take a little bit of the leaven, put it in here and put it back in the fridge, and that way my starter is always good to go. It's always in a clean container and it doesn't get any bad contaminants. When you start diving into this rabbit hole, a lot of people talk about, oh my God, I've got mold on my starter. What do I do? I've been baking sourdough bread for 10, 15 years now. I have never gotten mold.
Gotcha. And I've read that too.
So, and the reason why is because everything's always getting clean.
Good deal.
So to do this, what I like to do is take 100 grams of water and 100 grams of flour. So I pour the water in, take this little bit of starter. Let's just get it out of the container here. This is the fun part. Mix it up. Once that's mixed, now I need to add 100 grams of flour.
So, Philip, how do you get your first bit of starter to start this process from?
Well, there's several different ways you can go about doing that. You can make your own. All it is water and flour. There's a little bit of a process. You mix it together. You feed it over several different days. And then you start throwing some away and feeding it more, throwing some away, feeding it more. And the natural yeast in the air and the bacteria start getting into it and get it to bubble up and create little gas bubbles of carbon dioxide. So that's one way. The quick way is to find a bakery.
Get it from a friend.
Get it from a friend, or find a bakery that does sourdough bread and go in and ask them if they will give you a little bit of their starter. Because bakeries always have a problem with what to do with discard.
Right. Good to know. So now you know where to get your starter.
When you mix the leaven, you want to get it all mixed up and incorporated so that there's no dry flour in there. So after you've got your leaven mixed, we're going to cover this, put it on a counter, and leave it alone for 8 to 12 hours until it doubles or triples in size. And then it's ready to make bread.
Yay. Okay. Philip, could you just tell our guests about how to use a scale, because not everyone has done that before?
Sure. So kitchen scales, they come in all shapes and sizes. This one is not that expensive, it's about 50 bucks. It's got an on button. You push it on and it starts measuring. When I put a container on it, it weighs the container. But I don't want to know the container. I want to know the amount of the ingredients I'm putting into it. So there's a little button called tar. And when you push that button, it zeroes it out. Tar means 0. So it takes it to 0, and then I can put my ingredients in. Say if I add this spoon on top, we see the weight of the spoon, not the weight of the measuring cup. Exactly. And that's what scales do for you. Okay. Okay, shall we measure out some dough?
Sounds good.
I get my bowl, zero it out, because I need to add 500 grams of all-purpose flour. Next, I need 10 grams of salt. Then I'll take my salt, just mix it in.
Perfect.
So I've mixed my salt into my flour directly. If you look at a lot of different people, they talk about different times and when you should add the salt, when you should add the starter, the leaven, all these different things. It gets very complicated. I make it very simple. I mix all my dry ingredients together. I mix all my wet ingredients together. And then I mix it all together. Make bread and have fun. Get into the finer points later.
There you go.
And that's all the dry ingredients.
All right, so we are now on to mixing the wet ingredients.
First, we need 375 grams of water, milliliters. Okay, so we've got the leaven, which is the same thing as starter. I keep my starter a little, maybe a tablespoon in the refrigerator until I'm ready to bake. The night before, I mix it into what I'm going to use for the bread. And your starter, it's called sourdough. It's going to smell sour. It shouldn't smell bad. Now we're going to mix some bread dough. We just pour the wet into the dry. Get all those good bits in there. I just take a spatula and start working around the bowl. The important thing here is to get all the flour hydrated. And that takes a little bit of work. I start with a little spatula like this. It takes a little bit of effort. Then I get to a point where I want to go to a scraper. And my hands are going to get in here. Get down underneath, scrape up all the flour, all the dry bits, get it incorporated into the dough ball. So once it starts cleaning the flour from the sides of the bowl, you know you've got everything incorporated. There's no dry bits left. You've got a shaggy mess of a dough ball. And then it needs to rest for a bit. Cover it with a towel. Well, it's been about 20 minutes since we've mixed our bread dough, and now it's time to develop the gluten a little bit more to get it ready for the bulk ferment. So make a note. Our dough is still a pretty shaggy mess. And at this point, I'm going to take it out, put it on the counter, and do what we call slap and fold. And you're going to see it transform from a shaggy mess to a smooth ball of dough. Get it all out. Okay, with your fingers, grab it from the side, lift it up, slap it down, stretch it out, flip it over. Let it rest for about 40 minutes before you do the first stretch and fold or coil fold. Make sure your fingers are wet so it doesn't stick to the dough. Just reach in and lift this dough up. Look at it stretch.
That's gorgeous.
So then you turn it, you lift it up again, and that is stretch and fold. Cover it and wait 40 minutes for the next one. Okay, so this is called pre-shaping, and we take the dough to develop some tension in it. Just run it along the edge, get it in a tight little dough ball. And we want to cover it with a towel. It needs to rest for about 20 minutes. Take it off. So, shaping, you need a little bit of flour right on top and a little bit on your surface. Go. Flip it upside down. Just kind of pull it out. Look how nice and jiggly that dough is. Make a little envelope fold right here. Then take one side, stretch it out, fold it. Other side stretched out, fold it. Now the tip right here, pull it up and back. Then we're going to stitch it. Roll it over. So we get a little bit of flour on my hands so they don't stick to the dough. Push it down, rolling it to make tension, and then just draw it back. Now we're going to put some flour on the top. So we take it from there, and it just goes into the banneton.
Beautiful.
Pinch it. From this point, we take it, put it in the refrigerator until tomorrow to bake.
All right, so we have this lovely dough coming out of the refrigerator. Philip, tell us what we're going to do with that.
Okay, so we've had this proofing overnight, and we're going to take it to the oven and get it baked up.
Awesome.
You behind, I kept falling in your net. Oh, I've been so blind, but I know for sure the day will come when you first realize what have you done, and you finally get you that rebate and revenge is served on a cold plate, and you hear the roar of the shutdown when the world will stop without a sound. And the moment you will cry for help, and we only think about ourselves. Oh yeah, about ourselves, about ourselves.
Thanks, guys, for being with us here today. And thank you, Philip, for coming here and showing us how to make this gorgeous sourdough loaf.
Well, you're welcome, Jennifer. But I think we need to cut this thing open and try some.
I think you're right.
Maybe it would go with the wine.
Oh my gosh. Look at this, how delicious and beautiful. Oh. Oh my God. If you enjoyed this episode today like I'm enjoying this bread, give us a like and a subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Smoking and drinking.
You know, I was in there when I was 10, so I don't want to hear it. She did her initiation. I got mine earlier than that.
Finally made it.
I know. I graduated.
It's a very elite club.
Those Trace Amigos.
It was a
I need to know everything, who and the what and the where, I need everything. Trust me, I hear what you're saying, but act like it's new what you're telling me. I'm curious, George, I hop in the Porsche.